What's up, soldiers? Your boy Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com, vibes up in the kitchen as usual. Saturday morning means soup, and I'm doing my take on a red pea or red bean soup. So we've got a ton of red beans there. That's going to be the basis for this. And again, I'm saying it's my version because it's a sort of a simplified version. It is not the traditional version where you'll find like smoked meats in there and stuff like that, or beef, or ground provisions for the most part. No, real simply, we're doing something very simple. So here we go, a Caribbean red peas or red bean soup. Vibes it out, man. I have my big soup pot here. The flame is not on yet. I have 2 cups red kidney beans or red beans, which I soaked for about 3 hours, so they're nice and plump now. And that's going to go in there. The water that I soaked it in, I tossed it out because I find that if I toss that water out, it kind of helps with these sort of gas problems one may tend to have when eating these beans. So in goes those beans there, and right away, and here's where you're going to see a little bit of differences when making your version of, if you are familiar with red pea soup. They don't add the carrot at this point, but I like adding it at this point because it helps to break it down and cook it nice and tender. I don't know if you guys can hear that noise. It was a Lancaster bomber, one of the last remaining Lancaster bombers flying overhead my house here. We live on the sort of path to the airport, and we're lucky enough at the airport museum to have one of those Lancaster bombers. 2 scallions. I've got here some fresh thyme, some onion. Next up, I'm going to go in with some black pepper for a little kick. Nothing too extravagant. I've got here 2 bird's eye chili, or 2 bird peppers, we call it in the Caribbean. That's going to go in there. If you want to use about 1/4 of a Scotch bonnet pepper instead, you can certainly do that. 4 cloves of garlic, I just smashed with the back of my knife. And I've got here about 2, 4, 6 allspice berries or pimento berries. That's going to add a nice flavor to this. And what I have here in this pot is 2 pounds of salted pigtail. And the color that you're seeing it there is because I boiled it 2 times in water, and I dumped the water out both times. That is to remove most of the salt that it's cured in, and you will notice I will not be using any salt in this soup because we're going to get enough salt from that pigtail. I'm going to cover that with water and bring it up to a boil. A bit more water in there. It's come up now to a boil. Just going to give that a quick stir. And now here's the thing. I said this is the unconventional way of doing this. Slight differences. What people would do along with that salted pigtail, they would probably also go in with stewing beef with either or. You can have it, or you can just go with one or the other. Stewing beef, smoked meats like turkey, ham hocks, all those things could go in there as well. Reduce my heat all the way down to low. I'm going to put my lid on there and let that go for at least 1 hour. As it boils, if there's any sort of scum at the top here, there's some impurities, you can just skim that off and toss it out. It's been going now for about 1 hour. Now remember, I said I pre-soaked these beans. So if you didn't pre-soak your beans, it will take longer. The beans are tender now. And one of the reasons why we cooked the pigtail earlier, I think I mentioned about removing most of that salt, but it's also to help tenderize it as well. We want the meat falling off the bones. Like I said, it's been 1 hour. I'm going to go in here with 4 potatoes, medium-sized potatoes that I just cut up into big chunks. Give that a quick stir. And typically, you'd go in with yam and sweet potato and stuff like that. Lately, I am paying an incredible amount of money for yams and sweet potato and stuff like that. You know, the good Caribbean ground provision. So today, sadly, we won't be adding it to the soup, but if you have access to yam and sweet potato, now is when you would put it in. I would also go in here now with coconut milk Give that a stir, bring that back up to a boil, and let that go for half an hour. Now halfway through, 15 minutes into this, we're going to add our flour dumplings. I'm just going to turn my heat up here to bring that back up to a boil. For the flour dumplings, it's pretty simple. I've got here 1 cup of all-purpose flour, and if you wanted, you can go in with a pinch of salt in there. I'm cutting back on the amount of salt that I use, and right away I'm going to go in with water, and we're just going to work this into a nice soft dough. A little bit more water. Work it into a dough, and then allow it to rest for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to make the spinner dumplings. Just trying to get it nice and smooth, relatively smooth now. It's going to be nice and soft. And there you go. What I'm going to do is put some plastic wrap over this and allow that to rest for a bit. Just going to quickly show you guys how to make the spinner dumplings. I'm just working the flour just a little bit more. I always saw my mom would do that. Kind of freaky, you know. Alright, anyways. Just gotta pinch a bit out, and you're gonna just roll it between your hands here. Basically like a cigarette, I guess. Go ahead, make all of them, and then we're gonna put it into the pot. We've only got 15 minutes to go, so the countdown is on. This is where we're going to add those spinner dumplings that we created. Now if you want, remember I didn't put any salt in this dish because, as I said, the remaining salt in that salted pigtail will be enough to properly season this dish. If you want, after about 5 minutes after adding these flour dumplings, taste it for salt and adjust accordingly. If you went in with the whole peppers, as I did here, well, I burst mine purposely because I wanted that heat. But if you wanted, you could remove those from the pot now. If you wanted, you could remove the pimento berries. Nobody ain't trying to eat that. Give this a good stir and let that cook for the final 15 minutes. Notice the flour dumplings will float as soon as they're cooked all the way through. Anyways, hour and a half in total cooking here, but remember we soaked those beans and we pre-boil the salted pigtail, everything. If you go into that there, tasting good. If you go into that, it's going to be falling off the bones. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Not your traditional red pea soup or red bean soup, because we didn't go in with any beef or smoked meats or yam and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, this one here, real nice. Give it a try, man. Always a pleasure to have you guys here in the kitchen with me. Remember, the recipe will be posted in its entirety on CaribbeanPot.com. And leave questions below. This will thicken up when it cools. So this is why you may be wondering how come it's a little bit runny, but I'm anticipating that thickness, man. Vibes it up.